Hello everyone, welcome to Database Management. This is week 14. This week, we're going to focus on inserting and deleting set data from a table. That is chapter 15 and 16 of the book. Last week, we learned how to modify set data using update keywords or update statement. Now we will focus on inserting set data using insert statement and deleting set data using delete statement for a particular table. Please remember to double check before you actually use the delete statement, because once you run it, the affected rows will be deleted permanently. We will introduce a method to check the number of rows that are going to be deleted later in this chapter. Let's first do a few examples to get familiar with the insert statement. The insert statement using the sales orders example. Our old friends sales order example database. We use that database, and then let's see what is the data structure for customer table. You can see that the customer ID, customer first name, last name, etc. And for all those columns, that one column or one field is special, that is customer ID, which is a primary key for this table, and also it cannot be null. So when you insert into that table, you have to provide something for the customer ID. And also, customer ID is a primary key, which means it cannot be duplicated to any existing values. So it must be unique. So when you insert the new record, make sure the customer ID field is unique and there are no duplications for what you are inserting to what is existing in the table. Okay, so let's look at it. All the records in the customer table. Customer table started from customer ID 1001. It goes on to 1029. Actually 1028. You're going to see that 1028 row there because I already added one row before I actually record this one. Let me delete it first. Okay, now let's look at the customer table again. So this is pretty much what you're going to see in your customer table. It has 28 customers and customer ID is up to 1028. Now, what I want to do is to insert into the customer table with the field that I know for that customer, which are their customer ID, customer first name, customer last name, customer city, customer state. So for some of the columns that I do not know yet the information, but that's fine, because all those columns that I didn't list in this field are actually optional. There can be null values. And so to insert a record into a table, we're going to use the insert into the table name here. And within those two parentheses are the fields you want to add for that record. And please remember, customer ID, you have to include that because you have to provide a value. And for all other columns, it's actually optional. Now, I only want to, in addition to customer ID, I only have the customer's first name, last name, city, and state. I do not have the phone number and zip code yet, or the street address. But it's fine. And then after you have your list of fields, and followed by the value keywords, and followed by the values that are actually enclosed in a parenthesis. So here, the customer ID is 1029, customer first name, Mike, customer last name, Lee, customer city, Seattle, customer state, Washington. Okay, then I'm going to run that. There's no error, which means it's run successfully. And now let's see what is the customer table after we insert the new record. You can see that there is a new row with a customer ID 1029, first name Mike, last name Lee, customer street address null because we didn't provide, customer city Seattle, customer state of Washington, and all others actually is null value or 0. The 0 is because it's a numerical value, and the default is 0. So as you can see that for the insert statement, you can actually insert one row into a table with partial information. You do not need to provide all the columns, but if you do have all the columns, you can include all the columns in the first field to list all the columns. But if you do not, you can actually list only a subset of columns you would like to insert for that record. And you can update the rest of the field later using the update statement we learned last week. If you have all the information for all the columns, you can actually list all the values in the same order as in the table, and without specifying the first one. But the first parenthesis, they enclose the values. It works fine even if someone changed the table. There are actually one more field. It still works fine, but the method of list everything without using the first parenthesis is actually not going to work. Okay, that is how to insert one record into a table. There are actually more complicated insert cases, such as insert by selecting from another table, as well as primary key automatically add one when a new record is added. But these are software database specific, and it is better to learn where you have a real problem to solve. And by the way, the example in the textbook may not work with MySQL Workbench. So when you read through the textbook, keep in mind that some of the statement examples, it actually may not work because different kind of software, database management softwares that is actually used for that particular statement. Similar to the insert, to add one or more columns to a table, we can also delete one or more columns from a table using delete statement. And here is an example. And we want to delete from the customer table where the customer ID is 1029. That is the one that we just added. Let's run it. We write, boom, no error. And let's see what happens. You see that the record that we just added is gone. It is gone permanently. Okay, so the delete is permanently it's permanently deleted, and we need to be sure that what we're going to run is what we want, and we need to check. Actually, we indeed need to do a test or confirmation before we delete something. We didn't do that. Let's introduce the right way when you delete something, because the deletion, when you delete something, it is just gone permanently. You cannot recover from that. So let's insert the row that we just deleted, and let's look at whether it showed up in the table. It is actually showed up in the table right here, and we want to delete a customer ID 1029. This is what we're intention to do, but to make sure that what we want is what we really what the code is really going to return, we can actually modify the delete statement into a select statement. So it's pretty much the same, delete from a table where some conditions, and then you can convert a delete statement into a select statement. The only difference, you just change delete into select star. Okay, Let's do that. You can see there's only one row returned from the select statement. So from this is the double check, right? You transform your delete statement into a select statement to see how many records are going to be affected. In this one, it is exactly what we want. And then we run the delete statement, and then we can look at it whether it has been deleted or not. You can see the 1029 is gone. And you can actually delete every rows, all the rows in the table by simply do a delete from my table name. And it is highly recommended when you run some statement like that, you really know what you are doing, because once you run that, all the rows in my table name is basically gone. Okay, that is all for today. Here's the homework. Read through chapter 16 and 17 of the textbook and do the following exercise for the sales order example database. First, insert one new record in the employee table for the employee ID, first name, last name, city, and state, and then delete the record from the table you just added at 1. Okay, that's for the homework assignment. From the first week to the 14th week, we pretty much finish everything for the basic database management related topics. We introduce the overview, we introduce the select statement, we introduce the insert, update, and delete, and actually all different kind of joins. So until today, I believe you have all the basic knowledge to do some database management, but of course you're going to learn and get your experience by doing more exercise and real problems. But that's pretty much for the very basic fundamental database management. And from next week, we still have a couple of weeks left of this semester. We're going to cover the more advanced topics. But for now, the basic topics for database management is gone. Okay? Hopefully all those information has been permanently embedded into your brain, and you can actually get more and more experience by doing more examples and doing more exercise and read more database related articles. Okay, have a good week.